Okay. I'd love to start today's session with this clicker and with a question for everyone in the room. Do we think that we as marketers and that marketing teams are actually delivering true one-to-one experiences for our customers? Think about this in the context of your digital communications, the digital touch points that you could have with one of your end users. So things like email, SMS, push notifications, lifecycle messages, in-app, on-web messaging. Would you say that these messages are truly designed for that single end user who receives them every single time? I was going to ask for a show of hands, but I already see like a lot of no's with the head, so it feels like we're all on the same page here, because I would agree with you. And I actually would even argue that we're not necessarily even close to this. We're far, far away from actually delivering a one-to-one experience. So when we think about which personalization quadrant we're currently in as a brand, think about your business, your marketing teams, even think about the brands that you receive messages from, the brands you love. We're all trying to be in that top right quadrant. Precision at scale. How do we deliver that one-to-one message to our end user to satisfy, delight them, get them really excited about the brand? But where most of us in reality are today is in that bottom right quadrant, which is segmented marketing. And that is an improvement over where we are coming from. So the bottom left there is broadcast marketing. That's the campaign to an entire list, batch and blast. We're moving away from that. We are now building targeted segments. We're triggering journeys. These journeys have decision splits. We A/B test everything. And this will feel sophisticated, and it looks like personalization. But I'd challenge you all to think that if we're being honest, it's really still just rules-based marketing at its core. If one of your customers looks at a product, send them an email about that product. So that's not necessarily one-to-one. That's if this, then do that, no matter what the user's true, unique preferences are, who they are as an individual. And so when we think about how we move away from a rules-based world, the question becomes, well, if we're using the right, or at least all the right tools that we've been given till today, like the personalization tool belt, if you will, segmentation, A/B testing, conditional logic, then why are we still not delivering precision at scale? Well, it's because these tools, this personalization tool belt, it assumes something that is fundamentally flawed. That users who look similar are exactly the same and deserve the same message, the same experience. So let's actually test this out. I want to sort of get interactive here and build a segment together in the room. And so take note of when you qualify for this segment that we're building here. So we're going to include anyone whose company has over 500 employees. We'll include anyone who is a CMO, VP, or director at that company, anyone who's in the job function of marketing, and anyone who's attended the CMO Summit at some point in the past or maybe even this year. And so I'm going to do just a bit of mental calculus, back of the napkin math, and I think that's probably, hopefully, everyone in this room, if I had to guess. And just in case there's someone in this room who doesn't qualify for the segment, I want you to be included in the activity. So we'll add one catch-all filter. Just happy to be in the Bay Area for the Waymos. So now I think we definitely have everyone. And so now let's think about this. You're one audience, this room here. This is one segment. In a marketing system, we're going to connect you to one message or one series of messages. And you're all going to convert, every single one of you, because you're the exact same person. You have the exact same wants, you have the exact same needs as a consumer. And if only that were actually true, right? If only it were that easy. If you look around this room and you look around the table you're sitting at, the different people here, and you think about all the people you've met this morning, think about the people you will meet later in the conference, at the happy hours, at the dinners, we're not all exactly the same. We're all incredibly different. Everyone in this room is unique. And I actually know this because I've had the chance to speak with many of you already today. And if all of you are the same person, that conversation would have been eerily similar every single time. But every conversation has been so very different. With some of you, you leaned in when I brought up travel, so we talked about ski trips that we'd been on and shared those recent memories from this past season. With other people, your face lit up when I brought up your family, so I leaned in and asked you more questions about your kids. With some people, we laughed and we kind of goofed off, made some jokes before slowly transitioning into business. Other people, I could tell you were in a hurry, so we got straight to business. We kept it very professional. And in each of these conversations, what I was doing and what the other person was doing as well at the same time is we were adapting in real time. We were picking up behavioral signals from that other person, cognitively cataloging them and deciding how to go forward with that conversation. So some of you had a certain tone of voice that you were using when I was speaking with you. Other people had a different expression on their face, different body language, different responses to certain questions I was asking you. And it was these behavioral cues that I was picking up in the moment that drove these conversations in very different directions. It's a very human thing to do. So when you think about putting you all in one segment, that doesn't seem really fair anymore, right? If you all share some certain attribute, like being in the marketing department, or if you have a similar event history, like attending CMO Summit, that does not mean that you all deserve the exact same experience. The idea that sending a single message to an audience is personalization, that message will resonate with everyone in the audience, that doesn't really work. But what if we take this audience and we put it into a journey, and that journey has so many decision splits, like a Christmas tree of decision splits going down in different directions? Or what if, even better, we take this audience, and instead of just sending one message, we run it through an A/B test, and that A/B test has so many different variants to choose from? Unfortunately, that still is missing the point. Let me show you what I mean. So we have an A/B test here that we have set up. And think about running this A/B test, and after the testing period wraps, between these four versions, A, B, C, and D of that message, that version A is our winner. Converted 50% of the audience. Obviously, the majority of users, this is the winning variant. So this is the variant that we send to the entire audience. That's how A/B testing works. But if you look closer at the remaining 50% of users in this audience, you'll see that 30% of them would have actually preferred variant B, 19% might have preferred variant C, and Maya, she's a complete outlier, so she'll be consistently ignored by today's A/B testing measures, but she wouldn't have converted on any of those. She only resonates with variant D. But Maya and every other user in this audience, guess what they receive? Obviously variant A, because that's what worked best on average. All of our systems today are built around averages. And they're missing a huge opportunity. The opportunity to not just serve your largest lookalike audience and hope for the best, but to serve every single individual all the way down to the outliers like Amaya and give them a personalized experience with your brand. So I want to apply this testing methodology to this conference today. And so far today, I've spoken with maybe 10 different people throughout the morning at breakfast in the rooms and everything. And there was one thing that was common across a lot of those conversations. And if I think back to like that most common attribute, the most common theme, it was that a lot of people had kids that played a high school sport, specifically volleyball. They were in season right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a plan out of this. My goal here at the rest of the conference is to like network with as many people as possible. So many smart people in the room. I want to have great conversations. I want to meet as many of you as I can. So now my plan is going to be for the rest of the conference, every single time I meet someone new, one of you in this room, anyone out there, I'm going to start the conversation with, so how's your kids' volleyball season going? State contender this year? Like, what's it looking like? And that might work for some of you. It is volleyball season. But that being said, what about you who have kids who play baseball instead of volleyball? Or what about those of you who don't have any kids at all. That would be a super weird way to walk up to you and try to start a conversation. It would be really awkward. I'm not going to do that. And hopefully you're picking up on a bit of a trend here. And the trend is that the same tools in our personalization tool belt that our marketing teams have today, the segmentation, the personalization with conditional logic, A/B testing, these are the tools that were given us to deliver personalization, but they're ultimately the same tools blocking us from delivering true one-to-one. So then that begs the question, what is the answer? How do we get to one-to-one if what's in our marketing team's hands today won't do it? Just use AI. Easy. I think the problem solved. I think we can literally all go home. I think this conference basically might be close to over, nice and early. Let's transform our entire businesses using the same LLM that I used this morning to write a poem about my dog. That's definitely going to work. And the poem was great for anyone wondering. Hopefully you can tell I'm being very facetious. This is not the answer. One of the reasons this is not the answer is because AI isn't just one thing, one magical hammer that screws in hits in every nail. It's a collection of many different types of technologies, and those technologies have very different applications. And if you think back about how AI is being slowly applied into marketing over time, into our lives, if you go pre-AI, pre-digital, all the way back to the left side there, you go to rules-based, true campaign, batch and blast, send one message to everyone. Then we get into the testing era. So we finally introduce A/B tests. We're choosing winning variants. Then we get into optimization. And so this is the era of bandits, distributing variants based on performance ratios. We're getting smarter. Then we get into machine learning in the late 2010s. And machine learning allows us to build like predictive segments, predictive audiences. We build different messaging for those audiences. And then you get to today. And if you start way at the beginning and you come back towards today, what you'll see is a pattern of moving away from predefined logic that's very rigid, things that marketers manually set up, rules in a system, and we're slowly automating pieces of the puzzle along the way. And then you get to today, where we're starting to lean into full AI marketing systems. And what you really see if you look at the two kind of emerging applications of AI right now in marketing, things you're probably seeing yourselves, is that there are AI decisioning solutions and there are agentic systems. AI decisioning solutions are optimizing within a campaign, choosing between so many different variants, more than we ever could before, with a very specific goal in mind, the goal of that campaign. And then agentic systems are continuously learning across your entire life cycle, and they are experimenting and autonomously acting on their own to interact with your users for you across a wide variety of goals and outcomes. And so these two emerging applications of AI, they might look similar, but they are very different. And we're going to start by talking a bit about AI decisioning. So if you test drive any AI decisioning platform that's out there on the market right now, any vendors that are coming through, what you might experience is this sort of like top layer that's going to feel and look very modern. There's going to be an LLM for generating new copy for you, an LLM for generating subject lines, a module that will optimize for the best channel to send on, and a module to optimize for the best send time. And it looks new, but what's happening is these modules are operating over the top of technology that's been around since, like we saw in the last slide, the early 2010s. It's a long time ago now. It's operating on top of A/B tests, multi-arm bandits, predictive machine learning models, the same technology that we've always been using, just with a new, prettier top layer. So these AI decisioning systems, they're really just the most recent version of an if this, then that rules-based system. A system that is optimizing for averages. And I do have to say that there is one more thing, one more challenge with AI decisioning and with a lot of marketing AI in the market today that you might be getting pitched as members of the marketing team at your businesses. The challenge, the problem with all marketing AI available today is that it all has amnesia. And I mean this in a very literal sense. These systems, they optimize, but then they forget. If you go to a marketing AI vendor today, just AI decisioning system, and you say, hey, we really want to increase the number of signups. That's the goal we want to drive for our business, increase the number of users we're onboarding. That marketing AI system, that vendor is going to say, perfect, we're going to bolt on a set of AI agents to that onboarding use case. We're going to optimize messaging, and everything we're going to do is to drive users to sign up with that specific goal in mind. And so the system will be implemented, it will learn, it will test out different variants, see different outcomes. Maybe we'll start to drive incremental signups. Like maybe we start to see some lift here, and that's exciting. So then we go back to the vendor and we say, hey, now we want to increase the number of users we're getting a second purchase. Or maybe we want to optimize now around decreasing churn. And the answer from that vendor is going to be, great, we'll bolt on a new set of AI agents to every additional use case to run those optimizations. And what happens when you do that is that for every new optimization, you start from scratch. Your learning in the system resets to 0. A question? Yeah, so I mean, there might be different applications of how to, that's a great question, of how to incorporate skills into like an AI system. With a system that we're talking about for marketing, we could talk about an LLM that just generates copy for your business. That is one thing, and we can apply things like certain skills to that to make sure that we're holding a certain standard over time, right? But with an agentic marketing system, we're talking about moving beyond just copy generation. Sorry. Yeah. And with an agentic marketing system, I'm just saying that this is a true takeover of like the entire life cycle from your marketing teams for you. We'll get a little deeper into what that looks like. We're still talking a bit about like an AI decisioning system, which is not necessarily where this whole topic is going to stay today. I want to explain the problems here first, which what you pointed out is one of those problems. And so with these systems, and if we want to talk after too, we can go a little deeper on this. But with these systems, you're starting from scratch. Intelligence resets to 0. And it's like meeting your same customer over and over again for the very first time on every optimization. So when we do this, there's no memory between them. There's no connective tissue. These systems, they don't have the same sort of ability, like you've acutely pointed out, to have a skill that will be shared across each iteration of implementing this technology. So now we have this loss of memory. But what if we flip this? What if instead of assigning agents and assigning the intelligence at the campaign level, we assign it to people? What if we take decisioning agents and assign them one-to-one to every single customer in your database? Every single individual user is their own AI decisioning agent, just for them. And that agent will follow that user across campaigns and across channels and across lifecycle stages. And so now we're moving away from these siloed campaigns that aren't speaking to each other, and we're moving towards an agentic marketing system. A system that is building a deeper understanding of that individual user over time, a system that is building lifelong relationships with your customers. At Aampe, we call this continuous intelligence. It's always on experimentation, always on learning, never resets. It only compounds over time. So the system is getting smarter and smarter every time you send a message, and the user experience gets more and more personalized. And this works. Our customers at Aampe are cutting message volumes in half while increasing conversions, reducing unsubscribes, reactivating users, increasing the number of orders, driving bottom line revenue impact. They're seeing lift in all the areas that you would hope to see if you were going to implement better personalization into your messaging. And so continuous intelligence, agentic marketing systems, This is the next big thing, and it really does work. But here is the million-dollar question, if you will. What is different about an agentic marketing system, about continuous intelligence, that creates that connective tissue, that memory? How do we not suffer from the same amnesia that all marketing AI is suffering from? Well, the answer lies in the semantic layer. Every message in AMP is tagged or labeled, like you see here, across the various components of the message, and that means the message is broken down into meaning. So without labels, you might run an A/B test and learn that version B here beat version A. But what does that really tell you? How do you take that insight? Version B is the winner. That literal sentence, how do you take that and apply it forward to new campaigns to make those campaigns better? How do you take that into a strategy meeting with your team and say, let's shift the way of the business because version B is the winner? You don't. You just take an educated guess at best what it was about this message you created. And if you created it yourself, it's probably a biased guess, if we're being honest. And you take a guess and you say, what was it about this message? I think it's this. Let's apply that forward. And you hope it works. But the semantic layer eliminates that guesswork for you. So now these agents are automatically not just attributing success back to the message itself, but to all these individual labels inside the message. So for version B here, if that's what responded, or that's what worked best with a specific user, maybe it was because the tone of voice in the message was like a funny, cheeky tone. Or maybe since it's a travel brand, of all the offerings they could have selected, sightseeing was the one that worked best for this user. Or maybe it was because for the value proposition, the reason this user would select Travel Buddy as a brand over its competitors is the exclusivity that is offered by the business. Or maybe it's because the CTA had FOMO applied to it, and this is what got the user to click. So now I want you to think about this semantic understanding applied not just to a message, but across your entire lifecycle marketing strategy. So this is a real semantic abstraction layer visualization of one of our AMP customers. And what you're seeing is all these little tiny gray nodes, all the little tiny ones. Those are messages. Those are email, SMS, push notifications. Those are messages that the brand could send to one of their customers. The colored hubs, those are the labels that we just talked about. So there's a hub for tone of voice, a hub for channel, a hub for timing, a hub for value prop, for offering, for offer size. Anything you want to label within the system will have a hub for it. And those hubs are what connect these messages together. They create this ability to share meaning across your entire messaging strategy. So let's say, take one of these little gray dots here in the bottom right. One of these messages, let's say it's an email. You send that to a user. Let's say the user clicks on the email, starts a session, and converts. Like we get the positive conversion that we were looking for. Maybe it's a purchase. The agent does not just update its read on that email and attribute success back to that email and call it a day. What the agent does is it updates its read on every label that email is connected to. And those labels connect forward to all these other different messages that you're seeing. And these are messages the user hasn't seen yet, but is now much more likely to see because the agent will prioritize them, knowing there's shared meaning with that message, that email on the bottom right that worked, that drove a conversion. So the agents are building this model across these nodes that is an understanding of a user's preferences, an individual user, what they like, what they don't like. But if we can understand what they like, the user, and don't like, we understand their preferences, where does this persistent memory come into play? How do we prevent the amnesia to forget those preferences? Here's how it works. Every time an agent intervenes, they're deciding to send a message, and that message has these labels inside of it that we're talking about. And what the agent does is it observes the subsequent behaviors. It waits to see if a positive action or a negative action was taken after that message was sent. And there are these labels with confidence scores living on the Aampe user profile. So for every label you have in the system, a confidence score is assigned to it, and they're updating all the time, dynamically, waiting to see if a user took a positive response to receiving that message with that label in it, or a negative one. A positive response, we increase the confidence score that this label is something this user resonates with. A negative one, we increase the confidence score that this label is one that a user would not. And so this profile that you're seeing here, this becomes the standing answer to the question, how to create a personalized experience for Zach. This profile here serves as the current policy for this user, for the agents. It's a set of inferred preferences, what this user likes and doesn't like, and it serves as memory. This profile is available to the agent across any future message it sends, lifecycle stage, whatever it might be, and it can reference back and say, hey, what does Zach like? What should we send next? So if during onboarding, let's say for Zach here, we learn that the favorite channel to send messaging on is email, tone of voice, funny messaging, timing, 7 a.m., early in the day, and that for that offer, that a 10% offer works just as well, if not better, than bigger offers, like a 20% or something larger. So if we learn that 10% off offer works during onboarding, when we're driving Zach to second purchase, we'll start with that 10% off offer. So now we're protecting margin while still optimizing for performance and giving this user what they want to receive. And the agents, they lean on these scores. Every time they're deciding what to send next, they look at this profile and they decide what to send, what channel to send it on, what tone of voice to wrap the message in, what time of day to send it, all by referencing this memory. And because these agents are assigned at the one-to-one level in Aampe, these profiles filled with these confidence scores, they're unique for every single person in your database. So for a second, think back to this room and how we put everyone in here into one segment. And in a rules-based system, you've all just become the exact same person. So you'll receive the exact same message or customer experience. But in reality, we know that that's not going to work because every conversation I've had with everyone in here, and the ones that I'll continue to have today, they're going to be different. They're going to be unique. And I'll be adapting in real time to these conversations. I'll be picking up your body language, your facial expressions. I'll be seeing how you respond to certain questions I ask. I'll listen for your tone of voice. I'll shift my tone of voice, shift my approach. Some of you will want to talk about your family. Others will want to talk about travel. Some of you will want to laugh and make some jokes and we'll goof around, and others will get straight to business. And that is where these conversations are each going to go. But it's not random. This is us, humans, in a conversation with each other, building a mental model for this other person, cataloging what the person likes and doesn't like, how they're responding, and using that to go forward in this conversation. What agents are doing here is the same thing in the sense that they're sending messages, they're waiting to observe the response. Was it positive or was it negative? And then this mental model that we build, that we catalog in our brains, they're doing the same thing here with these preference profiles, this memory. And after this speech is over, and I'm going to be walking around this conference, I'll hopefully get to meet some of you. And for those of you that I have met already this morning, when I run into you again, I'm not going to reset my memory to 0 and try to reintroduce myself and pretend that I literally know nothing about you. Once again, that would be weird and awkward. It would be really unproductive as well. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to pick up where we left off. I'm going to reference the things that we talked about this morning and exploit what I've learned to pick the conversation back up. I'm going to ask you new things and learn more about you that I didn't know already, what you like, what you don't like, and those things I'll be able to use in the future if we connect down the road. Just like humans, Aampe's agents are adapting to the individual, yes, but they're also carrying these learnings forward. They have memory, and that memory, it powers better decisions continuously, automatically, across the entire life cycle. So here, this is an example. This is real data to end users of one of our customers, so real data, anonymized. And for these two customers, and these charts itself I'll explain real fast, what you're seeing is these gray peaks and valleys. That's general app activity, session activity. The blue circles on the bottom, those are messages. So there are times that an agent decided to intervene with a message. The orangish circles in the middle-ish area, those are going to be channel clicks, intent events. And at the very top, those darkish circles, those are your conversion events, the outcome we were trying to drive. And so for the user A, you can tell that this is obviously like a super user, a fanatical fan of this brand. And the agent observes this, supports it, and sends messaging to drive repeat behavior, repeat conversions, keep a healthy customer. But for user B here, this was a completely different story, as you can see. Maybe the user comes in at the very beginning. They're a new user. They're curious. They're exploring and browsing, but they do not convert. And so the agent, you can see over the next couple of weeks with those blue circles, starts trying things, starts sending messages, cataloging what's working and what's not working. But obviously, as you can see here, nothing is working. Nothing is landing. And most systems might register this as failure. Or even worse, they'll double down. They'll say, hey, we got to get this user to convert before they unsubscribe and we lose them forever. More messages, more pressure, got to do it now. And that's obviously not the right decision. But what the agent sees is something different. It doesn't necessarily see disengagement. It just is seeing a customer that might be ready to buy in the future, but is not ready to buy right now at this point in time for whatever reason. And so it does something unintuitive. It backs off, as you can see there, and applies this like cooling period. And after this cooling period is over, it sends a message, it tries something, and it tries something new, something that it hasn't sent already. We know, because of the labels in these messages, what it's tried, what has worked, what hasn't worked. So it doesn't send another offer. It doesn't send something it's already sent. It tries something new, and that new piece of content actually gets some interest. We get a click, as you can see. And so that's not a conversion, but it is a nudge in the right direction, and it's a behavioral signal for the agent that there's an emerging interest that could be happening here with this content that we sent. And so the agent leans in, provides some more messages that align with this emerging interest, and hey, we get the user to convert. And now the agent can lean in further and exploit what it's learned from this first conversion and lean in, start to drive some of those repeat behaviors, repeat conversions, ultimately work to make this user look a little more like our super user up top there, that fanatical fan of the brand. But the thing about these two experiences is that they're the exact same brand sending messages across the exact same time frame, but they're completely unique. They could not be more dissimilar. And this is just two users. For an AMP customer with an agentic agent assigned to every user, every customer in their database is going to have a completely different looking chart than what you see here. And so marketers, as they're set up today, are not set up for success. The tools that they've been given in that personalization tool belt, things like segmentation, journeys and decision splits, A/B tests, conditional logic with personalization, scripting languages like Liquid. You're never going to be able to make enough OR statements with your personalization logic. You're never going to be able to build enough decision splits, have enough variance in an A/B test, add enough filters to a segment to truly replicate that one-to-one dynamic experience that we just saw a second ago. So it's time for marketers to stop working in these manual ways, building these complicated segments, writing this super tedious personalization logic, building campaigns, building sequences of messages and journeys. These are all things that an agentic system can automate for your teams. And when you automate that mundane manual work, that same marketer now has the time to step backwards and start thinking more about high-value creative experience strategy, being more strategic to answer questions like what kinds of content and messages do we arm this fleet of agents with to message our customers on? What's a new creative idea that we can dream up with this time we have now that we can put in the agent's hands and let them experiment with? Let them find what user resonates with this new creative idea. And so it's time to stop building just campaigns and to start building relationships with customers. So to quickly wrap things up today, I just want to sort of reiterate the point that it's not necessarily easy to discern what AI out there is just an extension of the campaign-centric world that we're living in, decisioning systems that are just running on top of technology that we've been using forever, on top of rules-based technology. But at Amp, we are building something different. We're building agentic marketing systems. And these systems are a true evolution away from that rules-based world. And this is what can allow teams to, for the first time, actually deliver one-to-one personalization for their customers. We can actually all hopefully raise our hands and say yes to that question I asked at the beginning. And we're doing this by moving learning from the campaign level to the actual individual with one-to-one decisioning agents, by distilling insights beyond just what won, but learning why something won, with semantic understanding. And we're compounding intelligence continuously across campaigns, across an entire life cycle, using that persistent memory. So in a crowded AI space where most systems today forget, AMP uniquely stands out because AMP remembers. Thank you, and I will be around at this conference to answer any questions. I see we have one here. I want to make sure we have time to. We good to do questions? Cool, yeah, sorry. Please. Yeah. Yes, yeah, great question. So absolutely, we are what we would consider marrying. Maybe the marriage could be a little tighter, and we'll build that out over time, like any marriage. But that being said, the atomic unit of learning is the message. So what you're inferring is correct, that the labels and the message are where we learn what a user likes and dislikes. But we're sitting on top of, with our customers, their entire event stream. So we're a system that, kind of dissimilar to a lot of marketing technology, does not charge for events because we need an aggressive amount of data to really create a learning environment and an environment with enough context to make real decisions. And the one thing I'll say that I think will start to help answer that question of how we're thinking about it is that with AMP, we're not looking for correlation. We're looking for actually influencing new behaviors that weren't going to happen before. So we are doing episodic causal analysis to basically say, what was the user doing before the message was sent? What did the user do after? And then comparing that to a baseline to say, hey, is this even a new thing that we drove? Or was the user always going to purchase this? They were already in the app. Like, that's already a signal that they were probably going to take some act. Like, we want to get rid of that false signal, and that's our approach to doing that. And I'm happy to maybe chat with you after a little bit more about how we think about that. A great question. Do I have time for another question, or should we keep it going? And I can meet with people after. Perfect. All right, thank you, everyone.